Activated.
Analyzing.
Update complete.
What's up, Lore Masters? So if you've watched this series, you know I've teamed up with Eagle Moss to get more information on the ships that I break down. And this is one of those times, but unlike in the past, I wanted to go out of my way to say that this model, the Viper 2, is the most beautiful ship I've seen them make to date. I mean, I generally like Eagle Moss, or I wouldn't partner with them, but if you were thinking about getting only one model from the company, I'd say that this model would be the one to look at. Links are in the description below, and with that out of the way, let's just get into it. As we've discussed in other BattleStar Galactica breakdowns, the showrunners were not exactly big on explaining or advancing technology within the universe. Technology in BattleStar Galactica worked because, well, it worked. Or the tech didn't work because it didn't. We rarely got an explanation on why something worked or why it didn't, and it was flimsy when we got it. This can make breakdowns relatively light and hard to do, but let's just try anyway. The Viper Mark II seems, to me at least, to be the pinnacle of the Viper series in the BSG universe. It definitively is the Starfighter of choice for anyone who has played Deadlock, because, oh my god, Viper 1s suck in that game. The Mark II would be a decidedly huge improvement from the Mark I Vipers in both technology and weaponry in the series. One of the things I loved about it is that it still kept the simplistic requirements to fight an enemy that could hack your systems. Unfortunately, the same would not be able to be said for later versions, as even in the Mark IIIs, we begin to see movements towards more automation. The Mark IIs were constructed during the Cylon War and were ultimately the answer to the limited capacity of the Mark Is, as we've kind of already discussed. And even though they would ultimately be replaced, again, even during the war, there would still be Mark IIs that served in the Colonial military up to and including at the fall of the colonies. Ironically, it would be the Mark IIs that would be the least susceptible to the hacking by the Cylons during the fall. These fighters would be recognizable for their long, sleek frames with red pinstripes running down either side of them. When I did research on the other Vipers, they really didn't seem to have these markings, which is kind of interesting to me. The ship could and would fight in both zero-G and atmospheric conditions. The foresection comprised the nose and led back to the cockpit. Placed in different locations across the vessel would be mini thrust engines called the Reaction Control System, or RCS for short, which would allow the ship to turn 360 degrees in space. They could turn nearly any direction in less than a third of a second. This was an unimaginable amount of control in space and allowed for a multitude of combat maneuvers. Additionally, two of these smaller thrust engines would be on either side of the wings, which would allow the Viper to completely stop any forward momentum. The stern would have three different engines, one of them being the Voram VM2 D15 upper turbo thrust engine, with two Voram VM3 D22 thrust engines right below it. Additionally, the stern would have the fuel tanks, wings, and vertical stabilizers, and on the bottom of it, of course, you would have the retractable landing gears. Many sources state that the only limitations of the Vipers were the pilots themselves, what they could and could not handle. The ships were designed to be the match of most all Cylon counterparts. This meant that the Viper could do almost anything as long as the Viper could survive the operation. While ultimately the showrunners of the Reimagined series had very little interest in quote-unquote tech, it would seem that YouTube miniseries weren't cursed with this problem. From what I can tell from the sources that I've looked at, such as BattleStarWikiClone.com, the inside of the Mark II would include a Milso Delta G Intrepid guidance system. It would have an E-Quad-mounted gyroscope ACRS that is hot-linked to the cockpit instrument package and all RCS, again, reaction control systems, ports for enhanced performance. I don't even know what the fuck that means. The Mark IIs would also be designed specifically to resist Cylon hacking, which means a lot of the gauges and controls were analog. The fighters were effectively meant to be flown with as little computer assistance as possible. On board, they would have only the most rudimentary computers. An interesting, if not confusing point is when looking at the series, I can clearly see that the Vipers have the DRADIS systems, which is basically radar. Though, no wiki or informational source lists this as one of the systems on board. I attempted to verify if there was any specific reason for the lack of information, but I couldn't really see why they weren't including this. But again, watching the series, I know it's definitively there, so they would definitively have them. Doing a breakdown of the armaments, the Mark II would boast two 800-round Thrax MEC A6 300mm mass accelerator cannons. The ammunition would be stored in the dorsal bay of the fighter. The fighter would also apparently have the capability of having missiles mounted onto them, which included nuclear payloads of upwards of 50 megatons, though this is rarely seen in any series that uses the ships that I've seen. But again, it was in the series, so they definitely did have that capability. That'd help the pilot that had a 50 megaton bomb strapped to them, though. The vessels included both chaff and flares in order to dodge incoming ordnance against them from Cylon raiders or other human opponents. For those who wanted to be on jeopardy, the ship would be about 8 meters long, 9.4 meters high, and have a wingspan of about 16 meters or so. Ultimately, I really do love this ship. I think it's my favorite fighter in science fiction to date, though we'll have to see what The Expanse has in Season 2 and Season 3. But what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to comment, rate, and subscribe, and guys, I'm going to see you on the next Lore Reloaded. Thank you so much for watching this video. This is actually the YouTube cut. If you like to see the Lore Reloaded Producer's Cut, which includes actual clips of the shows with more videos to help with context, consider becoming a patron for as low as $1 a month. Not only is there more content for you to see, but patrons get to see these videos a full 2 days in advance. If you're interested in seeing it but don't want to become a patron, then head over to lorereloaded.com. The Lore Reloaded Producer's Cut will be uploaded a full day in advance before coming on YouTube. Lore Reloaded is completely fan-funded and relies on viewers like you. Thank you so much for your consideration.